¿Mande? ¿Se subieron a un carro y se fueron? Órale, gracias. Alright, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to talk a little bit. You guys showed up down here. And if you guys want to give a little spiel about what Perry, Texas is doing, Perry, Texas. Alright. Let me get some people. Let me get some people in. You said they all got into the car and left.
Oh, they all got in the car and left? Yeah, I didn't hear what she was saying. Alright. My camera might die here pretty soon. I've got my other... Oh, no, that body camera already died. I gotta change the battery on that one. So, 6 guys that were dressed in black that were about to cross illegally got in the car and left when we showed up. Go figure.
Oh, they're saying that that lady across the fence told them that those 7 got in a car and left. The ones that took off and hid behind this bush. That was bush right there.
Just giving people a few more seconds to join us.
And
That's where we are, guys. We're at the wall. You guys know exactly where this is. Right behind me is the wall. Of course, you know Camp Liberty used to be right above there until the railroad got involved. But the government got the railroad involved. I don't know who's a bigger militia, me or them. But I'm going to introduce you to them. And this is a group called Open Carry Texas.
and OCT women.
OCT women as well. These guys came down to the border looking rougher and tougher than we ever did. And but anyway, since we've been down here, what have you guys seen since we've been here at the wall?
Besides a bunch of clothing, women's clothing, especially women's intimate clothing, just strewn across the trail. We went up from here all the way to where Camp Liberty used to be, it looked like.
Okay.
Then on the way back, we noticed as we were, I don't know, probably 200 yards down this way, we noticed some movement on the fence line here, moving towards this opening. And as we got closer, I don't know if they saw us or not, because we were, again, like way over there. But there were about 6 men right here on the other side of this opening.
So waiting to cross.
Right underneath the bushes. Right underneath the bushes.
And those of you guys that watch the video, you guys know this is where the wall ends. You know that this is the hot spot. It's very easy to get into Mexico, very easy to get into the United States. You just come right here and
this is the United States constitutional.
The phone is in Mexico. You can see how dirty it is. But so anyway, these guys are from Texas. You guys had an event today, didn't you?
Yeah, we had an event down in Socorro. We went to protest Will Hurd's gun control votes for universal background checks and his opposition to bump stocks, or his support for bump stock bans. So we did a walk down there. Then we wanted to come out here and see, I wanted to show people this border, because this is one of the reasons why we in Texas are fighting for, well, the kind of rights that people have here in New Mexico already. I'm carrying my handgun. I don't need a license to do so.
Right.
But in my state of Texas, I need a license to carry a handgun. And this is why people need to be armed, because you look at, I mean, there were 6 20-something young men, all dressed in black with water bottles and gloves. I don't know why they needed to have gloves on, that were over here just getting ready to cross. And then when we came around, when we came around this little berm right here, they got up and ran.
Okay.
And so we've got that on video. It's on my CJ Grisham YouTube channel. I mean, we got their faces.
Gotcha.
Should be on here too. If it,
yeah, I zoomed in on them.
I am a proud 3rd-generation fronteriza, a woman of the border. The largest portion of the U.S.-Mexico border is in my home state, Texas. Every single U.S. representative who represents a border community is against the wall. So over a decade ago, El Pasoans saw a wall erected on our southern side of our community. Governments like El Paso County and the city of El Paso actually sued the federal government back then, trying to fight the building of this wall. Unfortunately, we lost, but it feels like this awful decision and discussion keeps getting resurrected over and over and over again. People are really tired of being portrayed in a way that is just not factually accurate. Here's what Donald Trump does not get right about us. We are not just an incredibly safe community, and in fact, El Paso, Texas, we were safe long before a wall was ever constructed in my community. Not only are we a safe community, but we are an important economic asset to the United States. $90 billion worth of trade comes through our ports of entry every single year. People and commerce flow back and forth across our ports of entry. We have a gorgeous, revitalized, historic downtown that celebrates our past while it looks towards our future. Border communities like mine have been so poorly described and maligned by people like President Trump. We recently saw and heard about the deaths of 2 children, 7-year-old Jacqueline, 8-year-old Felipe, both of whom came through El Paso and died in U.S. custody. One of the things that I've shown my colleagues, those colleagues who've come to the border, I've shown them the area where Felipe was apprehended, Felipe and his father. That area already has a wall, and it proved, I believe, that walls don't work. Walls don't solve the problems that this country should be talking about and tackling, and those problems are drugs. How do we stop the flow of drugs? And the answer lies in where they're flowing through. They are coming through our ports of entry. So why not give our Customs Border Protection agents the best technology, the best resources so that they can do their jobs? One of our challenges is that there are thousands of families fleeing violence and poverty in Central America, and they're seeking refuge and asylum in America. So what's the best way to address and deal with that challenge? Is it cruelty? Absolutely not. And my hope is that as many colleagues as possible in Congress come see the border and understand the border before casting judgment on the border. We need you. We need you engaged. We need you holding us accountable so that we are having the conversations and debates that make your life and our world better.
Open carry, Texas. Yeah, they are. That's the founder of Open Carry, Texas. Absolutely. If you're going to go from New Mexico to Texas, you might as well. This is New Mexico. Now make like you like each other, Mario. So you think you need flash on this one?
No, you're good. It'll do it automatically.
Hold on, don't go anywhere. I did the long ones and then I'm doing the short ones. In other words, the close-up.
All right, let's get out of here.
All behind you. All right, no more guns over there. And drive slow because the road is kind of more disturbed than this one. Towards the right.
I'll follow y'all.
Towards the right.
All dressed in.
Up.
all dressed in black, ready for the nighttime
I know.
crossing.
I hope you guys had it if you have any pictures of the trip.
No, I've been keeping out.
Because that's...
She's a felon.
I never even saw you, lady.
She's
No, don't do that.
Trust me, I can't even see right now. All I see is a big bright sun.
Well, yeah, but it's not what's going to show you.
This truck next to them, 'cause I got enough.
well, so yeah, I guess this is open carry Texas, except for a couple of our guides here.
Well, you're in New
You are
Mexico.
in New Mexico.
You're in New Mexico.
In New Mexico, it's open carry, is
You
it
can
not?
open carry here all day long.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, you don't need.
Oh, that's
a
right. I
permit.
don't need a license even.
No, you don't need nothing in New Mexico.
But I'm saying it's just open carry Texas is that's the group that's out here.
But even just like,
We had a border patrol guy come up to us.
yeah.
I have no idea. I just rode with them. You'll have to ask them. The guy in the white shirt.
No. I just, because we have our guys up there just watching and stuff, so we just want to make sure you guys are okay. And just make sure that you don't, nothing else.
Everybody's fine.
Anything like that.
Yeah.
All right, no. You guys go ahead and do your thing. I just want to know how long you guys will be down here for. So you can be nearby, just in case of anything.
Okay. Yeah. No, everybody's fine.
Doing well. Take care, brother. What was that?
He was just checking on us. He's making sure we're okay. And I don't know if that's the truth, but that's what he said.
Well, he's alone, so he'll probably now that he's seen all the guns, he'll probably come back with more people.
Yeah. I guess that was his quick response. Is everybody okay? He sees all these
Yeah.
guns. He's like, yeah.
Yeah, because I noticed when we started walking up, he backed up a little bit.
Yeah.
No one ever wants to talk to me.
Politics gets you freaking.
Yeah, politics always does.
You know, the ACL.
I talked to them. I said no to them.
Are they still down there?
I wasn't gonna take them over there.
Why didn't they follow us? Did they not want the video down here of us next to the wall?
Recognition of Women's History Month, we're spotlighting a mother from Texas. Veronica Escobar is among a record number of women now in Congress, and she represents a city at the heart of the immigration debate. I recently went back to my hometown of El Paso, Texas, to talk with her about her historic journey.
Everything leading up to that moment was overwhelming. In some respects, it didn't feel real.
Not only was the moment real, it was unprecedented. Veronica Escobar, along with Sylvia Garcia, just became the first Latinas from Texas elected to Congress. She represents El Paso, a city at the epicenter of the country's immigration debate.
I grew up very close to my family's dairy, Escobar Dairy, and so my family's been here for over 100 years. I feel very connected to El Paso's history.
And there's no place more connected to El Paso than its sister city, Juarez, Mexico.
The border is such a magical, complex place. You know, it's this place where two worlds are juxtaposed. There's pride, and there's hard work, and there's perseverance, and that is who we are as one community.
A community that would find itself in the spotlight on the night of the State of the Union.
El Paso, Texas, used to have extremely high rates of violent crime. Now, with a powerful barrier in place, El Paso is one of the safest cities in our country.
Those of us who have lived here all our lives, we know the truth, but it's this constant attack on border communities that is both demoralizing, but also, I have to tell you, invigorating.
Since taking office, Congresswoman Escobar has toured the border and detention centers with her colleagues 5 times. Recent Saturday, she hosted a town hall at her alma mater, Burgess High School.
Which hairdo is yours?
Yeah, look for big hair.
What do you remember from that time?
What do I remember?
Yeah, what do you remember from that time?
Juarez.
Back when it was easier to come back and forth.
Right. Yeah.
Your predecessor, Beto O'Rourke, he said recently that he would be willing to go as far as to take down the wall. Do you agree with him?
I do. Some kind of fencing, I'm not averse to that.
What can be done in the meantime?
One of the most important things we can do is educate the public. The American public is going to need to decide if this status quo, this kind of governance, this kind of rejection of the Constitution is something that they will tolerate again in 2020.
And just this week, Congresswoman Escobar voted to terminate President Trump's national emergency declaration intended to pay for the border wall. The battle continues.
Sit there and wait until we get out of sight out and then they'll take back off. Look, go back down there, come on across.
This is the inefficiency of government.
What's up with them cars?
So Ashley, what I'll tell you is, I used to be on meds for my anxiety and PTSD, and the problem is I thought I was better at one point, and so I came off of them, but I didn't do so with my doctor, and I almost committed suicide because of it. And so I was able to go to doctors and get me off of it. I started doing what's called complementary alternative medicines. Look into that. And I am now, I also went through some individual and group therapy for my PTSD. And now I successfully live and manage and cope without drugs. And so I don't have to worry about if I miss a dose, or if I'm out traveling and my meds get lost or something. What am I going to do? Because now I'm able to kind of cope without them. And like I said, I'm not saying go off of it without your doctor, but get with your doctor and find. There are ways to cope with PTSD and not have to worry about meds. And probably not everybody can do that. And I'm not against medications for those that they work for. But and they worked for me too. Don't get me wrong. They definitely worked for me. The problem was when I didn't take them, they worked against me. So anyway, all right. Well, obviously Border Patrol's not going to come out here. Did you see how long it took them when we came out here? When you called about,
because they were on top of the hill.
Yeah. But when you called about, well, there's still a truck up there.
Yeah, because they haven't crossed it.
No, the first time
They're not
nobody
going to
called
go down here until they cross.
They're probably not.
They won't catch them, man. They'll cross. As soon as you guys leave, they'll cross. They're not going to cross with everybody standing here.
They're not.
They're not going to cross until when you...
Let me get my card. I'm actually trying to get a hold of you.
Okay, cool. Cary, Texas.
Yes, sir.
Fighting for gun rights. I interviewed one of the guys. I don't remember who it was, but he was one of them that was proposing constitutional carry.
I'm one of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Yeah, we've been fighting for constitutional carry since we've been in existence.
I don't know why Texas ain't on board with that. I don't.
Because we got a bunch of Democrats in office. Oh, I'm sorry. They call themselves Republicans, but they're
right.
Last I checked, Republicans were supposedly pro-gun, but obviously not. At least not Texas Republicans.
Right.
See, the problem with Texas Republicans is that for so long, Texas was a Democrat state. And then at some point, we flipped to Republican, and you couldn't get elected if you were a Republican. So all these Democrats suddenly decided, oh, I'm going to be a Republican so I can get elected, back in the 90s.
Right.
And so now we've got a bunch of Democrats who are Democrats, but they run as Republicans because you can't get elected to statewide office in Texas unless you're a Republican. That's why we don't have constitutional carry.
Gotcha.
Because we really still have a bunch of Democrats in office. But the people have gone Republican. But obviously what that means is Republican doesn't mean conservative or pro-liberty anymore. Otherwise we'd have constitutional carry. We wouldn't be fighting our own speaker for it. But anyway, I think we're going to start walking back.
All right, get your guys over here. I'm just going to do a little video here.
Oh, okay.
Live.
Hey, guys.
Terry, come here.
Come back this way.
We need your firepower. I'm just saying that for the camera.
Ashley.
I don't think she wants to be on camera though.
Well, no, she can.
Oh, she can film.
Well, actually, no, I don't want her on camera because I've got to separate this. Here, let's go down here by the wall. Let's go down
by the entrance?
Yep.
Or the ending?
Border Patrol flies down here, you guys have permission to leave. Hello.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming to my home in New Mexico.
You know, for those of us who live on the border, it's hard to understand why it's hard for others to understand us. And it's frustrating to know that we are being painted as a dangerous place meant to be controlled, when what we see is a place of complexity and beauty. And the complexity, of course, is that this is where two countries come together. And this is where two nations intersect. And for those of us who grew up here, this has always been a fluid place. But it has been a place of laws and a place of respect and history. And obviously things change and the world changes, and the nostalgia that many of us long for, or that we have for the past, we live in a new world, and we understand that. And those of us who live on the border, there's no one who wants safety more than those of us who live here, raise children here, make a life here. So when we are painted as an unsafe place, or a place that was, what the president said during his State of the Union address, once one of the most dangerous places, and we know this to be untrue, it is very painful and frustrating and infuriating. And so we have to take a long, hard look at what we're doing as a country. You know, El Paso, this border, and the U.S.-Mexico border is one of the most militarized borders in the world. And we are not at war with our neighbor. So we really have to assess, what is the goal here? What do we want to accomplish? And what's the smartest, most strategic, most humane way to accomplish those goals in a way that reflect our values as a country?
Trump 2020! Yeah! Resign! Why aren't you worried about our kids being slaughtered here? Okay? My child was beaten to death, and you were given an extended invitation to come march at our child abuse march annually, and you haven't showed up to not one.
I'm sorry.
But you care so much about
I'm
children,
sorry.
right?
I didn't hear
Yeah,
what you
whatever. You're a fake, and you should be
super immature. You're an adult. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Be quiet. You don't even know anything.
Stop. No, stop.
I'm 20! Trump 2020. Trump 2020. That's right. That's right. We don't like it. We're a poor border town. Going through our own issues. Trump 2020. Trump 2020. Trump 2020.
Look at the hate he's got.
I like your guns.
In light of the political attention surrounding the borderland and border security along the U.S.-Mexico border, 2 local congresswomen led a congressional delegation along the border today. KTS 79 News reporter Stephanie Shields gives us the report from Sunland Park.
Congresswoman Veronica Escobar and Xochitl Torres Small hosted a border tour on Saturday to help teach other Democrats from Congress what it's like living on the border and its security.
It's frustrating to know that we are being painted as a dangerous place meant to be controlled.
Representatives saying in order to come together with a bipartisan solution for border security, people need to see the border and the surrounding communities for themselves.
We also know that we need an agency that will continuously adapt to changing threats and circumstances. And that's why you have to look at the border on a mile-by-mile basis.
Congressional delegates toured different ports of entries, spoke with immigration advocates, and were briefed by CBP on border security.
One of the things they said that unfortunately our president has not made clear enough is that it is a mix of policies that will make our communities safe, our border secure.
For those reps who had never been to the southern border, it was a way to gain knowledge of it, to better explain to their constituents.
With all the debate about what we're doing about border security, it was important to me to come here and see how very different it is from the northern border where I grew up.
Saying CBP agents showed them what the borders need for better security, more detection technology, agents, and more immigration judges.
I want America to take a step back and realize that political rhetoric is political rhetoric, but the truth and the facts are also here, and that's what we should be conveying to the American people.
And this tour comes just days after President Trump said El Paso was once one of the most dangerous cities before the border fence, and just 2 days before he makes his visit to the borderland on Monday. Reporting in Sunland Park, Stephanie Shields, KTSM 9 News.
I like people always to be able to tell whatever their story it is. So what is your mission, given the fact that you're telling me the things that you're telling me? You know, there's drug cartels, there's drugs, there's people being dropped off. What is the mission of your organization?
Open Carry Texas has as its mission, and that would be CJ up ahead with the body armor. He's the founder of Open Carry Texas.
The white shirt.
Yeah.
The white shirt with the body armor. His mission is to promote the lawful and legal carry of weapons, because as a nation, when we disarm our population, we're only creating the environment for a dictatorship to flourish. If you look at countries who have Mexico has no law where you can carry any kind of weapon. It's against the law to carry in Mexico. If you go from here to there, a Marine carrying anything would be jailed, imprisoned in Mexico for carrying a weapon from American side to the Mexican side, even though there are military. We want to promote, Open Carry Texas promotes the legal and lawful carrying of weapons and the proper training of its citizens to be able to protect ourselves. When you're at home, you should be able to protect your home. You should be able to protect your family. Our Second Amendment guarantees that right to us. Concerned Citizens of El Paso, which is the group that I represent, when we created the Human Border Wall in February, when we stood that line for 45 minutes for our 45th president, it was to bring attention to an area where a lot of human trafficking occurs. When people don't want to come through our legal port of entry, we have to ask ourselves why. We are the most generous nation in the world. We allow over 1 million legal migrants, immigrants, to come into our country legally. When you're trying to come in through our back door, it can't be for a good reason. We have to ask why. It's not that we are being racist. It's not that we don't want people in our country. We want you to come through the right way. We want to make sure that your intentions for our country are just as viable and righteous as our own for wanting to live in a free nation. If we are not careful with our free nation, we're only one generation from losing it. And today we have our schools that don't even teach our Constitution. I remember when I went to school, by 3rd grade, I knew the Constitution of the United States of America. I could recite to you the preamble by the beginning of 3rd grade. It was a requirement. They don't even know the Constitution when they graduate high school at this point. They don't know our history. And as long as we continue to take away our statues, to take away the things that made our nation great, good, bad, indifferent, all of it made us what we are today. Our good history and our bad history is what made America great. We can't say that we were prosperous and wonderful the whole time, because we weren't. It would be a lie. Nothing good happens without being forged through the fire of pain. So does that make slavery right? No, it doesn't. But does it mean we should eliminate that history? No, we should not. Because if we forget our past, we're destined to repeat it.
Okay, that's George Santayana anyway. But I wanted to say more about, we were laughing, Jim and I, because we're sitting in a restaurant, sitting next to the people we're trying to find.
in my back shot.
And I was trying to, you know, just kind of find you. It seems to me, and I'm sure people would be somewhat doubtful, there's almost, it seems to me, the point you're making is almost like a humanitarian one. That is to say, if people are human trafficking or sex trafficking or bringing, you know, drugs out there, or the cartels are right there.
We stand a better chance of saving them at our borders.
Okay.
Right where we stood and created the human border wall, that specific spot was where 2 weeks before a 12-year-old had come running across, and CBP wasn't able to help him until he was on American soil. The whole human trafficking ring was literally on the other side of the border, as close as these houses are to us right now. And by the time the federales got over there, they were gone. And the only one we saved was the little one who made it across the wall.
Yeah.
And why did they have him there? Because we don't have a border wall.
Let me ask you this. Why do you think groups like yours are misrepresented? I know when we left the restaurant, somebody was giving me a foul look, or your group a foul look. It was very demonstrable. As I said, I'm just trying to find out what you guys stand for. So what is it that you think people detest? What do you think people are worried about?
I think people are misguided. Oftentimes, it used to be in another generation, and I'm sure you remember, where we were taught to question everything. We don't live in that world anymore. We are not taught to question anything. We are to take it as it's told to us. So whatever is spit at us, we're supposed to accept it. If you listen to a lie long enough, you begin to believe it. So many times in today's world, in the neighborhood that I live in the restaurant that we met you in, people hear one piece of the story and they never ask to hear the other side, because the piece that they hear fits a narrative that they've heard over and over and over again. So it's easier to believe the lie because you've heard it so often and so long and you believe it to be the truth, than to question and ask, what is that other side? If you notice today in the world we live in, people, I think of the kids who went to Washington for the March for Life. They were wearing red hats, and they were, you know, accosted because they were wearing red hats without any knowledge of who they were. They were high school kids. And they called the American Indian an elder. He was 50 years old. That doesn't quite make him an elder. He's actually a youngin' compared to what Native Americans consider an elder to be. But it fits the narrative, so it's easier to believe that the kids were being racist than to believe that we've been lied to for years. It's easier to believe that no drugs come over the border and we're just helping people by letting them in than to believe that the border wall stops and we have human trafficking here. It's easier to believe that everybody who does my nails or who cuts my hair or who's in any type of that kind of service industry, it's easier to believe that they're here willfully because they want to be, than to believe that they're a human trafficking victim working for their trafficker. It's just an easier narrative, and people don't want what's difficult. It's easier to accept what's easy.
Happening today, the 116th Congress gets to work on Capitol Hill, and it is the most diverse Congress ever. The group of lawmakers elected in November broke barriers even before setting foot in Washington. Starting with today's swearing in, there are more women than ever before in the House of Representatives. The 116th Congress also has more openly LGBTQ House members than ever. Additionally, it sets records for the highest numbers of Black and Latino members. And part of that diverse group was El Paso's new Congresswoman, Veronica Escobar.
I'm so ready to get to work, ready to reopen the government, ready to tackle some of the biggest issues and challenges of our generation.
The 116th Congress also welcomes its first ever Native American women and Muslim women and the youngest woman ever elected to Congress.
On to the distinguished Congresswoman from Texas, Ms. Escobar.
Thank you so much. Chief Provost, while you call it a prosecution initiative, it was clear that it was intended as a deterrent, and I entered earlier into the record an article that identifies 10 memos that were written by the administration and by staff in the administration. One of those memos made it into the hands of Senator Merkley, and the memos outlined the way to best deter via zero tolerance. Have any of you seen any of those 10 memos? And did you participate in either the writing of or the influencing of those memos? Yes or no?
Ma'am, I'm not sure on the memos, so it's hard for me to, without seeing the memos.
All right, so one last question. Was anyone at DHS held accountable for the botched rollout of this policy, the thousands and thousands of children who've been traumatized, and the fact that there are still families that have yet to be reunited? Was anyone held accountable? Yes or no? No?
I'm not aware.
I yield my time.
The lady's time is expired.